Hi, folks. Morning or evening or afternoon, depending on where you are. Wish you a very warm welcome. This is the Sustainable and Resilient Infrastructure Seminar Series that we are doing as part of the Risk and Resilience Tech Hub. Many of you are aware of what the Risk and Resilience Tech Hub is, but if you are not, here is a 30-second primer. The Risk and Resilience Tech Hub is a public-private partnership working across the four-county region. The primary objective of this tech hub, it's not research, even though I'm a faculty member, but the primary objective is to develop commercialized solutions for our changing relationship to water and extreme weather. We were awarded about $20 million from the EDA, the Economic Development Administration, and the description of the three different projects that are funded, next generation concrete, workforce development, and governance is kind of given here. Ultimately, this project is expected to result in good jobs, in thriving startups, workforce development, in resilient economy, infrastructure, and big picture, not just for Florida, but stronger national security. So the picture on the right gives you some information about all of the different things that we are doing. And here I've just shown the project leads, but there are several others that are working on these projects, including as examples, Titan and Carbon Limit. So this was the overall scope of the work that we had proposed, and these also include the total addressable market. All of this was not funded, but it incorporates coastal defense, next generation concrete, and energy efficient buildings. So if you're interested in collaborating with us, or if you run a VC and if you're interested in funding some of us, please come talk to us because we are partially funded and more funding is certainly being sought for some of the component projects. As I said, one of the things that we're interested in is the support of startups and to really advance the South Florida ecosystem with respect to innovation, resilience, etc. The activity today is the part of the Sustainable and Resilient Infrastructure Seminar Series, and this is what we are going to do. We ultimately aim to advance startups, to develop connections, to help these startups to disseminate their technologies, typically high TRL, but we're also interested in low TRL. But it's not just the startups that will be talking. We're also interested in talks from academia, from government, from folks like Millie, for example, who will talk to you in quite some detail about what Ocean Exchange does. So in a minute, Millie Pitts, who is the exec director of Ocean Exchange, she's going to talk about how amping up South Florida innovation systems for coastal resilience can be done and all of the awesome work that Ocean Exchange is doing. We have the next several seminar series set as well. So these take place the last Friday of the month. Kind Designs, Carbon Limit, Titan, all of those folks will be talking in the upcoming months. And I hope to see you there in the future as well. Millie will start in just 1 minute. In the meantime, a huge favor, if I can ask, please introduce yourself in the chat. Say 1 or 2 lines about yourself, and if there's anything you want to, advertise or ask, maybe you need funding, maybe you want to collaborate with folks, maybe you offer funding, please say that as well. So just a couple of lines in the chat, who you are, what you do, what you want to get out of all of this. That would be very much appreciated. So with that, that's all from me, and you can actually get to the fun part, which is Millie talking about Ocean Exchange. Thank you for doing this, Millie.
Thank you for inviting me. I also asked if you've heard of Ocean Exchange, put a thumbs up in the chat. If you haven't, well, put a thumbs down. That doesn't mean no, it's bad, just so I get a sense also of the audience. So here we go. I'm just going to share. Great. So I am the executive director of Ocean Exchange. We have been around for now 15 years. We are a 501c3 that just merged into the Marine Technology Society. And if you don't know the Marine Technology Society, Google them. They've been around 70 years. They're member-based. When they first started, they were very focused on defense uses of ocean tech and offshore oil and gas. Now the world has changed dramatically in how we think about ocean technology, and we're now part of that family. So let me give you a few numbers here. Um, we have we give away grants, and I'll get to more of that, but we give away at least 100, and we've given away more than $300,000 of grants every single year, and you see those numbers. We have an event that's in South Florida. It's in Fort Lauderdale. If you Google us, you might see some legacy references to Savannah. We started in Savannah, Georgia, and moved down to Fort Lauderdale in 2019. The number in red is sort of the big number I want you to think about. When we find these startups and we're international in scope, we vet them and we consider them based on their impact. We want kind of big, globally scalable stuff. We want a high level of innovation, and we want an ability to execute. That is, we want them to stand up a business, whether it's for profit or not for profit, that doesn't matter, and start actually deploying these big solutions. Our mission is to help advance the adoption of innovative solutions for healthy oceans, resilient coastal systems, and that's what a lot of you are working on. We don't separate the body of water from that, 100 kilometers, which is impacted so much by the ocean and impacts the ocean. And the other thing that we focus on is the ability to execute. So we're not TED Talks. I love TED Talks. I've been to some of them. We're looking for solutions that can be deployed and have impact. So when we follow our finalists over these 15 years, and let's say in a round number, we've had 170 finalists out of, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applications. When we follow them, they have raised $3.2 billion of investment in grants, and most of that is investment. The kind of work that a lot of you work on and that we see in our startups takes a lot of capital to get these going. These are not cheap. It's not a phone app, right, to find your favorite restaurant. Very capital intensive. It's hard putting things in the ocean or in the coastal system. They have to be very robust and resilient, often take a lot of engineering and science to make them work. You'll see some of our historic awards here. Guy Harvey is a familiar name in South Florida, one of our sponsors. Over on the left side, you'll see that we are now a member of the Continuum. And in the second half of my presentation, I'm going to talk more about that, but I'll give you the headline. The Continuum is one of 4 in the whole country that NOAA awarded a phase 2 grant for what's called Ocean Enterprise Accelerators. And we'll talk about that later. And then, of course, we are a partner, an unfunded partner in the South Florida, what used to be called Climate Ready, but Risk and Resilience Tech Hub. So when we talk about a global network and we look for these solutions all over the world, you get some sense of it here. And we're very, very broad in what we think about having ocean and coastal impact. So we're agnostic about the form of solution. They almost all, 99% of them, have some kind of engineering or science behind them. They may have great social implication, but the actual solution itself deals with science and technology and life science, almost all forms of engineering, every discipline of engineering. Now we see a lot more that's sort of quite in the IT space, AI, machine learning, digital twins, and so forth. You see how many countries. One of the things that we like to say about Ocean Exchange is that we bring the world of ocean and coastal innovation to South Florida. And I'm a big believer that the solution to many of the problems anywhere, but we happen to be talking about South Florida, may not come from that location. The best solution to solve some kind of coastal resilience problem may be invented in Indonesia or in Holland or in Norway or in France or wherever. So we, the parties that support us in South Florida do so not just to support South Florida companies, but to bring that world of innovation to South Florida. I'm going to go through a number of examples, and we just don't have the time for me to talk about them much individually. I'm going to show you to show the breadth of the finalists and the award winners that we have. This is last year. Oyster Heaven does oyster restoration. They now claim that they have done the largest amount of oyster restoration in Europe. They're working on a project in St. Pete, Florida, and in the Chesapeake. But they are in Holland, in the Netherlands. Phoenix is in Louisiana, and they have they burn solid waste with some novel technology into the tiniest little amount of ash. Carbon Bridge is green methanol. US-based company. They're actually doing a pilot with a South Florida company now. Carbon Bridge is based, I think they're in Massachusetts. Again, bringing technologies to South Florida that are required by South Florida companies or governments. Oops, sorry here. There we go. Remora is biomimicry, tracking marine mammals. Helix Power is related to zero emissions port operation. Anchor Guardian is a very special anchor system. A lot of anchors drag and they actually destroy the seafloor. And in some cases, there are seagrasses that are very, very slow growing. And when they're destroyed, it takes a long time for that to regenerate. Anchor Guardian is Swiss, Helix Power and Remora are both in the northeast of the United States. No Feed. They take food waste and through biotech make fish feed out of it for aquaculture. One of the things I learned, and maybe some of you know this and you might even work in this area, in aquaculture, they often kill 7 or 8 fish to make the fish meal to feed a fish, right? And there's just nowhere in the world does that ever make sense to kill 7 or 8 things to feed one thing. You know, I mean, humans, of course, do it, but in the natural world, it doesn't make sense, right? So this is taking food waste and repurposing it. This company is in Tanzania. Bee Planet Factory is Spain. It's taking leftover batteries. If you have an EV, even when you have to replace it, they still have energy and they're repurposing the leftover energy in those batteries. And since we encountered them, they actually have a subsidiary that's trying to recycle all the valuable materials out of the batteries. C2C New Cap, this is for improved transportation energy. They are Portugal based. Oops, sorry again here. More Symbrosia using seaweed to make additives for livestock feed to reduce sort of the natural methane, you know, cow farts, right? 12. We encountered them as students at Stanford. We later gave them grants in 2019 after they graduated. They have actually raised $845 million since they came through Ocean Exchange as a C round. And sorry to get into some of these financial terms, but that's a venture capital term. They take captured carbon. They don't actually capture it, but you can imagine their factory might sit next to a big utility that's a carbon emitter that's capturing their carbon. And a pipeline of CO2 would go over a fence. They transform it into other valuable materials. They broke ground on a factory in the state of Washington to make aviation fuel out of this captured carbon. Microsoft has invested in that. And Air Alaska is a partner, which I think is code word that they have an offtake agreement, right? They're gonna be a big customer and take the aviation fuel. CalWave, wave power. Wave power is one of the more difficult technologies. The road is littered with failed wave power companies because keeping that equipment operating and robust in the ocean is so difficult. They're doing quite well. Symbrosia is a US based, 12 is US based, CalWave is US based. Here's another one, EcoSubsea. It's a little robot that goes around a ship in port and collects that cleans the hull. So drag is a big deal. Tiny reduction in drag in the commercial shipping or cruise industries have huge fuel savings. So there's money there, but the less fuel you burn, the less emissions you have as well. And it also has kind of a co-benefit of reducing invasive species that are, attached to these hulls. They are from Norway. Sun culture, Africa, kind of a coastal agricultural solution. Perito Power is fuel cells. They are US based. You're starting to get the hint here of how broad all the verticals are and how broad the diversity is. Again, there are Florida companies that need these technologies. And we've certainly had Florida finalists as well. Noon Energy is a battery technology. They're California-based. Salient Predictions could have great implications for Florida. It's a group out of Woods Hole, the Oceanographic Center up on Cape Cod. They do weather forecasting, but not the forecast for today and not the long-range climate forecasting. They do sort of an intermediate type weather forecast where apparently, there is not a lot of competition today. So they are in Massachusetts. A GIT, this graphite innovation, it's a ship coating, again, to reduce drag. They are a Canadian-based company doing very well. They're raising money. They are on quite a few vessels, big commercial vessels today. We have a collegiate award process. So all of these other awards that I just talked about are $100,000. We have a collegiate award process, and that is still open. Susan.zellers@oceanexchange.org. I don't know if she is online or not. She is managing this. If you are an undergraduate or a graduate student, this doesn't apply to postdocs and faculty. We have 3 $10,000 awards. They're essentially scholarships. Novaloop, you'll see University of Pennsylvania, upcycling plastics, doing very well, raising money. Vita Inclinata, Seattle University for big water rescues. So Coast Guard might use this technology that's safer. On Deck Fisheries, they're from British Columbia, using machine learning to help vessels track they're looking for bycatch and illegal fishing and so forth. Air Company is sort of like 12, the other company I talked about, where they are transforming carbon. They are US based. We met them when they were at Yale. So I'm going to close the Ocean Exchange bit with this. Our collegiate solution application is still open. You see Susan's email address and her phone number here. If you qualify, if you're a faculty member and you have students that would qualify, we would absolutely welcome it. It's very broad, the definition about ocean and coastal solutions. While our bigger awards, we ask for a working prototype. We're not that strict with the collegiate award, although many collegiate applicants have a working prototype of some sort. And many of them have gone on and applied for our larger awards. Many have formed companies and are doing very well. It is not designed for, as I said, sort of the student project and you write the paper and put it on the shelf. We want parties that really aspire to entrepreneurship, that want to form companies, or in some cases, the students have already formed a company and they really want to deploy and commercialize what they're working on. We are funded by some names there that you'll recognize from South Florida, like Royal Caribbean. Apollo Global Management is in Miami. Carollo is Southern California based. They're a big water engineering company, but they have, I think, 7 offices in Florida. You see Guy Harvey Foundation there. Sail Plan is in Fort Lauderdale. The Marine Research Hub is South Florida. Many of you may know Katie O'Fallon. She is Fort Lauderdale based, but UM is part of that consortium, NSU Florida and others. So I'm gonna switch here. We'll take all the questions at the end. I think that'll be the best way to do it. So let me get rid of this one. Bear with me a second here. I'm just going to stop sharing it. And we're going to move over to okay, can you see this? Yes, good. Okay.
No.
Oh, I got a thumbs up. Okay, let me go back here. Do you see something called the continuum? No? Okay.
No.
Okay. Give me a
I see
second
the
here.
I see the continuum file, Millicent. It's
Oh.
there. Standard.
So some people say yes, you see it, and some say no.
Yeah, so
No,
we
we
see the
don't see the
files,
presentation. We just see the file.
Oh, okay.
but just
Let
the
me.
just the downloads.
Oh,
not
sorry.
the actual.
Okay.
You haven't opened it
Thanks.
yet.
Thanks.
The Wells Fargo letterhead is also okay, Millicent, if you want to open that one.
Okay, perfect.
I didn't do it right again. Stop. Sorry. Let me
There you go.
go one more time here.
One more time. Yep. You're doing a great job as always, Millicent.
I don't know why this is always so hard sharing these darn things. Okay. Here we go. The continuum. I'll repeat. So we are one of a group of 7, and I'll show you who is in the 7. We applied for the phase 1 of the continuum back in the summer of 2023, we started that application when NOAA did their first notice of funding opportunity. And our group included, there were 4 of us, and there were a couple of hundred different applications, as we've been told. The phase 1 group included 15 grantees. We merged with another phase 1 group that happens to have 3 Florida entities, and that gets you to the 7. And we were granted the phase 2, and we're one of those 4 in the whole country. The other, well, I have the other ones here, so why don't I just move on? So what is ocean enterprise? Some people think it just means the blue economy. It's not. It's a subset of the blue economy. Ocean enterprise embodies a set of tools that help manage the ocean, coastal systems, and ocean-related activities. So I like to say it's not the thing, it's the data and the observations and the analytics you need to manage the thing, right? So if we talked about seawalls, it's not the concrete itself for the seawall or the design of the seawall, although it might be some of the software to use for the design, but it's not the concrete, it's not the materials. Let's say that there were a series of observations and data that helped one decide the best placement for the seawall. That would be the ocean enterprise, the observations and the data and the analytics that help make the seawall better. I spent 30 years in the chemical and materials industry, and my last industrial job was with BASF, the big German company that is well known. They used to have a marketing jingle that said, you know, we don't make the surfboard, we make it better, right? So the ocean enterprise doesn't make the seawall. It's tools to make the seawall better, or the placement of it better. So it is definitely a subset of the whole blue economy, but it's not everything in the blue economy. Why did NOAA pick this? When Dr. Spinrad was the NOAA administrator, he co-authored a book about the new blue economy, but it was really about the ocean enterprise. It was about the data needed really to power the blue economy and the observations. And he felt that that whole area was being underserved, underfunded, underrepresented in the work done. And so this really embodies his vision of why this was funded. In spite of all the headlines and, there's plenty of negative news, I'll say that this Ocean Enterprise Program, the 4 groups that are being funded, the money is flowing. We have been told that this program is a real highlight inside of NOAA today. Why is that? We are trying to stand up businesses. When we do that, we're going to solve the big problems. Jobs are going to be created. Lives are uplifted, right? You're talking about coastal resiliency. If there are startups or other businesses that help solve the huge problems, Florida is ground zero in a lot of this, is it not? Your life is going to be better, right? There's less risk. And hurricane season has started. Everyone's life can be better. Economies can be better. Insurance rates can be better. People don't have to think about, retreating from the coast and all these other options that are being discussed. So here are the 4 teams that I mentioned. Generator, they're up in the Great Lakes. The other thing is that Dr. Spinrad and NOAA at large, right, talk a lot about the Great Lakes. Those of you and us that live in traditional saltwater coast environments, sometimes we can forget, the U.S. has 1/5 of the fresh water on the whole globe, in the Great Lakes, and we share that with Canada, and they're very, very important to trade, to culture, to economics, and so forth. So Generator is up there. Start Blue, they're part of Scripps, University of California, San Diego, very, very well-known group. This is our group, the Continuum, and you can read those, but I'll tell you a little bit about them. Tampa Bay Wave is an accelerator in Tampa. Interestingly enough, they've never done anything in ocean tech, but they do things in other sort of data and analytic verticals. And we think that there are technologies there that may have ocean and coastal utility, maybe for risk management for insurance companies, but even more broadly for sort of people that operate in those areas. Seaworthy Collective, kind of well-known name in Miami. Daniel Kleinman has a accelerator incubator there. I suspect some of you know him. He's also a partner in the South Florida Risk and Resilience Tech Hub. St. Petersburg Innovation District, they're more or less a co-working space, but they have a lot of startups and small and medium-sized enterprises that are in their space, and so they do a lot to support the community that we all are part of. Braid Theory is in Los Angeles. They are a for-profit, vertically integrated consultancy for startups. They are physically located in Alta Sea, which is in the port of Los Angeles. University of South Florida, well-known. Ocean Exchange, that's us. World Ocean Council is a member-based organization. Historically had done advocacy for its members as it relates to ocean-related matters. They've now, kind of broadened this kind of services that they offer. They still have a big U.S. footprint, which is historical, and they're establishing also now a big footprint in Barcelona. VentureWell, maybe well known at University of Miami. They used to have another name that was no one knew how to pronounce it. It was like XXI, X something. They rebranded themselves as VentureWell a few years ago, and they are known for helping innovators in a university setting kind of move forward to commercialization. So those are the 4 that are the phase 2 grantees in the NOAA Ocean Enterprise Accelerator. Here's some logos. Let me come back here. So what is this accelerator? Let me talk about the continuum because the programs are a little different of the 4. So we have a call for parties to apply to the accelerator, and startups often are at very different stages. Seaworthy Collective, not exclusively, but has tended to focus on very low technology readiness levels, TRL levels, and some that are even just at an idea stage. Braid Theory, on the other hand, has tended to specialize on those that are higher TRL levels, or those that are actually just becoming commercial, and how you actually, amplify them and push them and really help them expand commercially. And as I said, Tampa Bay Wave has worked in a little different space, but companies that already have some very small revenue, but very data oriented. So we do this call to come into a cohort, and depending on the level of that cohort in terms of its the applicant, in terms of its TRL level and its business readiness level, we push them to one of the 3 accelerators. So in our group of 7, there are 3 accelerators. They will go through a curriculum that is appropriate for their TRL level and business readiness level. And once they have graduated from the accelerator, they can apply for what is called a TDC award. Maybe a term you're familiar with. I was not before this grant. It means Technology Development and Commercialization Award. So 40% of the grant that we have from NOAA, so we're getting 14 million over 4 years, 40% of that must flow through us to the startups. So I think it's brilliant on NOAA's part to use this whole group, all 4, who are down on the ground with startups. They think that we are in the best position to redeploy their money through these TDC awards. We have not done our first grant yet. This of the TDC awards, this entire grant just started in January. So we're getting ready to graduate. Our first cohort will come out of Braid Theory. They have to separately apply for the TDC awards. The TDC awards are probably going to be, 100,000, give or take, each. So in any given year, we have to give away 1.4 million. The purpose of the TDC awards, in the case of the Braid Theory cohort, might be to have a pilot at they need to put something in the water and actually do some observations or capture data. Or it could be that they have access to some big data sets and they have some algorithm and they need to move a lot more data through these data sets, sort of prove some hypotheses. Remember, all this is about data and observations. It's not about the actual physical thing. So it's a great thing. $14 million over 4 years. We're going to have cohorts, multiple cohorts every year, and 40% of it will flow through us to the cohorts. The other 60% is for our programming and so forth. Let me come back now. So here's our group. And one of the things that is interesting in Washington right now, it's always been interesting, but I think it's particularly interesting right now, are these dual uses. And so one of the things that I'd kind of ask you to put on your agenda, if you're working on something that has not only a civil use, but it may have a defense use, that's particularly interesting. And you see some list of ideas here of parties that might be working in a given area for for government or for just to have a private company. But if it were examined by the DoD, it might have great use for the Navy. This grant, of course, the startups have to be US based. They may have a headquarters outside of the US, but they have to have a US legal entity. So, we're looking for those avenues to push some of these to Office of Navy Research or Navy. Of course, they have a lot of bases. Navy bases have huge coastal resiliency issues. The one in Norfolk, for example, we're close to a lot of those folks. There are days that there is so much blue sky flooding that some of the main arteries to get into the Norfolk Navy Air Station they're impassable, right? They have huge issues, just like you would see in South Florida at times. So different topics when this grant was first considered and the NOFO was put out. NOAA had 4 areas that they wanted us to, all applicants, us to focus on. Once the phase 2 was granted, they've sort of opened it up, and I'll let you read this, but it's very, very broad. Anything about shipping, the commerce, the things about ports, conditions for a rapid intensification of hurricanes. Of course, that would be a big observation and data intensive kind of thing to think about. Predicting, sargassum and algal blooms, big deal in Florida. A lot about capturing and measuring how much carbon is stored. It's not an easy thing to do. The term about MRV, measurement, reporting, and verification, is standing in the way of monetizing a lot of carbon capture. So that's all about data again. What else here? Engineering and economic analysis for nature-based solutions, something that would be very, very important in Florida. And there is a huge interest in nature-based solutions. When we started 15 years ago, almost everything we saw was something that was, human engineered, right? Mechanical engineering. And what's, I would think, really taken off in my experience with Ocean Exchange or nature-based infrastructure. And there's a whole bunch of people trying to figure out how to finance it too. And it's been a hang up. Everyone wants it, and no one knows who's going to pay for it. So that's one of the big challenges about a nature-based infrastructure. But, if you get some of the economic analysis that makes it more investable, that's a big step to fix that problem. What else? Risk assessment, right? Risk. At the end, a lot of things boil down to risk, right? The whole thing about coastal resiliency, in fact, you've rebranded it, right, as risk and resilience. What else could we say here? Decision-making tools for resource managers. We're close to the National Marine Sanctuaries Foundation, and there's a sanctuary down in the Keys, but I don't know how many sanctuaries they have now, 20 or something like that. They need a lot of tools for the management of those sanctuaries. Methods to leverage private vessels, citizen science, vessels of opportunity. Also, Florida's a big boating capital. Using more vessels, whether they're big cruise vessels, industrial vessels, private recreational vessels to capture more data is interesting to NOAA. Anyway, you can read these and you kind of get the sense again of how broad this is. And that's really it. I'm just about on time. We wanted to leave time space for questions. I'm really happy to take them. I'm delighted to be here. It's a lot of information. I can take questions, of course, about Ocean Exchange per se. I can answer questions about the continuum. I'll try to answer any questions more broadly about the NOAA grant. If I don't know something, I'll certainly try to find out and make sure you get an answer back.